is the Kev Baker Show.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. And it's right, I am Kev Baker, and this is another week of Kev Baker shows for you tuned in live tonight on tfrlive.com. For a nice weekend, recharging, the batteries raring to go again today. I've done a little live stream over on YouTube. The quality was quite stuttery, quite poor, and I apologise for that. But the audio, it's the content and the information that matters in the end of the day. And if you didn't catch that, please check it out later on over at my YouTube channel. And I'm in a bit of a good mood tonight, and that's because we're going to be joined by a returning guest. Now, being Scottish, you know myself and Whistles, we always like to have a laugh, and even sometimes we could probably be accused of having a laugh at inappropriate things. But that's the way we kind of deal with things in Scotland. We've got a kind of a dark, kind of not twisted sense of humour, but we always try to look at things with a comical eye, because I find it's almost the best tonic to some of the topics that we do cover on the show here and other shows across the whole range of alternative media, you know, everywhere. Everything's got a kind of dark, kind of pessimistic, depressing slant to it. So, you know, it's good to have a little laugh, try to kind of raise our spirits. And like I was saying on the stream today, you know, even smiling itself, if you just sit and smile right now, how easy is that? And how good does it feel? Then you try and pull a frown. You've actually got to like start working muscles and really force yourself to do that. And I think that in itself is telling us that we need to chill out. We need to kind of relax. And like I was saying last week, come together, a bit of peace, a bit of unity. And tonight, a bit of fun with our guest. And of course, tonight, a returning guest, Charlie Robinson, a friend and author of The Octopus of Global Control. Now, since Charlie does lots of podcasts, he's been on here a few times, he must probably be fed up with hearing the same old bio show after show. So I thought, us here at Team KBS, we can give him something different. And as for this brilliant book that's loaded with hardcore truth from the horse's mouths, but the most important thing that I can tell you about this man is that he is very, very much one of us. And he is 100% real. Now, before we bring him on, let me just read these few lines from the front of his book, The Octopus of Global Control. Now, this book is dedicated to those seeking the truth about the world that we live in spite of the ridicule from friends. To those who have ruined a Thanksgiving dinner by debating who the real villains were behind 9/11. To those who have been fitted for a straitjacket by your family. To those who contributed to his awakening, to those who inspired him, to those who educated him, and thank you, thank you, thank you. Charlie Robinson, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back, my man.
Thank you for having me. I am definitely not Q, and I'm not a product of AI. I can assure you.
That's the whole show out the window. Then I thought I had it sussed, man. I've been putting the dots together. I've been looking at the trip codes. I still don't know what a trip code is fully. But
neither do I. But don't worry about that. Just trust the plan, Kev.
Oh, trust the scam. I mean, trust the plan. Exactly. No, Charlie, it's great to have you back here tonight, man. And you know, the past couple of maybe week or so, I've been looking at the schedule. Not just your own show coming up, but shows into the future. And I have to wonder, you know, for how much longer are people like me, people like you, and all of our audience right now tonight, listening in wherever they are, how long are we going to be able to even do something like this? And the reason I say that is because, you know, unless you've been living on Mars or something, or maybe, I don't know, deep underground military base, maybe the reptilians had you. But if you've missed it, Alex Jones, he has blatantly been, in my opinion, I would describe it as very harsh censorship right now. And for me, they're trying to set a precedent. But I'll get your thoughts on that, because I think this is something that really we all have to face, Charlie, don't we?
Yeah, it's a big concern. It's something to be taken seriously, regardless of how someone feels about Alex Jones. It's important that, you know, actually, even especially if you disagree with him, it's important that his voice stays on. Now, we always have to remember, nobody's got a gun to your head. You can turn it off. You don't have to listen to it. You don't have to watch it. You hear interviews with people on the street, and it's as if they feel like, Alex Jones has to go because he's harming their children, or he's ruining their lives. It's like, Jesus, just stop listening to it then, you moron. It's important that the voices are heard. It's important that the companies like Facebook and YouTube, can I mention that word, YouTube? Can we just call it YT then, maybe, so you don't get tossed off?
Yeah, soon it'll just be like alphabet soup.
Right, exactly.
Lost because we'll be using every other, all 25 other letters of the alphabet.
Right, exactly. So, I mean, these platforms that are censoring free speech, censoring the speech of someone like Alex Jones, it's insanity. And it's not ending there. If you think that that once they got Alex Jones off, then it's fine. Well, I got news for you. It doesn't work that way. They peel away at these guys until it gets down to the only speech you're hearing is exactly what they want you to hear, and then that's a gigantic problem. And just take a look at East Germany, how well that worked out. You had self-censorship, which kicks in, right about now. I mean, we're just talking about it. So there's overt censorship where they just throw you off the platform, and then there's censorship where they throw you in jail. And then there's the self-censorship, which can be almost even, as harmful as everything else, because you start thinking about, God, can I even say that? If I say that, what's going to happen? Will they pull me? Will there be backlash against me? What about my sponsors? And once you go down that path, then your show is going to be pretty boring. So, or just your conversations with your friends are going to be pretty boring. So if you're at the point where you're wondering about what can come out of your mouth, then it's time to reassess things, because where we are right now, it won't end with Alex Jones. I don't know where it will spread, but you can certainly bet that guys like Drudge will be gone. Fox News will be gone, which is, look, I'm no fan of Fox News, but the more platforms, the more voices, the better, because they sort of work to check each other. When you only have 5 multinational companies controlling the news, then you really only have to control 5 people at the very top to make the news whatever you want it to be. If you have 50, like we had in the 80s, well, then, there's going to be a couple people that are outliers, and they're going to give the news in their own special slant, or, the way they see the world. And it'll keep each other in check. But now when you're down to 5 multinational corporations that control all the information, well, then, things are going to get pretty dystopian in a hurry, and it's going to be, 1984 relatively quickly, I would imagine. On
steroids, my man. And over here in the UK, the censorship thing, this is nothing new to us, because we've had Russia Today, obviously a very popular channel, kicked off of our satellite network. We've got Press TV out of Iran. Obviously, that's no-go over here as well, with the kind of things they talk about. And when I say the kind of things they talk about, they're very cute, Russia Today and Press TV, because I would say they're probably 2 of the most truthful news organizations when broadcasting in this country. And I say that because the best form of propaganda that the Russians could put out there is just to show people the truth about our own government. They don't need to lie about it, Charlie. And I think that's why they were such a threat. They pulled their license and get out of here.
I was on RT a couple months ago with Sean Stone on his show Watching the Hawks with Tyrell Ventura. And if you pull up...
Oh, come on, just name drop in there,
Listen,
son of Oliver Stone,
I know.
No, he's a really good guy, man. And there was at one point I was kind of in Skype contact with him, and I don't know why it fell through. I'm going to write that name down. But anyway, I derailed after your name checking.
Well, I did this interview, and now you can find it on YouTube. But when you pull it up on YouTube, underneath it, there'll be a little Wikipedia thing that will say RT is Russian-owned television. And I'm like, okay, thank you. I didn't ask for that, but it says that
underneath my videos. They call him Kremlin Kev. Beware the fake news, man.
Yeah, it's like they're just like, oh, hey, by the way, before you watch this video, I'm going to give you a little hint. By the way, it's owned by Russia. Like, thank you. I got it. I'll take care of it from here. It's okay. Wikipedia. It's okay. YouTube. It's fine. I know which videos I want to watch. It's ridiculous. And yeah, RT is like, people don't know it here in the United States, and it's great. I think they changed the name from Russia Today down to RT to kind of make it a little less, obvious with the Russia. But like, What's great about it, for one, is that there are no commercials. And that kind of helps, because when you're watching the nightly news in the United States, every other commercial is for some pharmaceutical company that's trying to sell you something. So, when you've got all that advertising dollars rolling in from big pharma to the networks, you wind up with network news coverage of pharmaceutical industry that's very positive. It's not objective at all, because they don't want to blow that up. So, I like RT. I'll say it. I mean, yes, we know that the Kremlin funds it, but it's way more objective than anything that I've watched in the United States. And their documentaries are fascinating too. So I highly recommend it. You might have to go on the black market to get it now, but it's worth it.
No, they're going to start calling you Kremlin Charlie, dude.
I'm sure they are. I'm sure they are.
On a more serious note, I mean, all of this is for a reason. And when I look at Alex Jones and what's happening there, and it's not just him that's been censored, by the way, folks. He's kind of the biggest name that everyone will recognise. But you've had, the kind of right wing, Gavin McInnes, people like that, Laura Loomer, a lot of other people as well over here in the UK from time to time that they're censored. And it's all leading towards something, because this whole show, the whole thing that they're playing out in the media for months now, ever since Donald Trump really appeared on InfoWars, it went into overdrive. And I think, Charlie, and we were kind of discussing this before the show, that the end game here, potentially, is going to be some kind of internet ID. And the reason I say that is because with everything going on the internet right now, with anonymous posters and stuff like that, and all the other stuff that goes on the internet, trolling and celebrities being trolled, you know what it's like on there. Sometimes it can be an absolute cesspit. Well, all of that is going to be rolled up into a nice convenient ball to really push forth the end of anonymity on the internet. We're looking at internet ID.
For sure. They even talked about it at Bilderberg in 2016. They talked about the idea of the internet ID card. And if you go back to remember Chappelle show back in like the early 2000s, there's a really funny part, a bit that he did. What if the internet was a mall? And so it shows him walking through the mall, and it's all these people standing in front of the stores, like in front of porn stores, and saying, "Hey, buddy, come over here." So it's really funny. You should go watch that. But I mean, my feeling is that if you think about it like a mall, right now, if you go to the mall, you just walk in, do your stuff, walk through the stores. The stores don't know who you are. They don't need to know who you are. It's none of their business. Now, they would like it. The internet would like it. The people running the show, the people running Bilderberg would like it that you all have an ID so they could know who you are. They don't like anonymity. It doesn't work for them. It doesn't work for their advertisers. It creates a big problem or potential problem. So what they really want to do is have you get an internet ID. Now, if they told you today you have to have one, there'd be a massive revolt. So what will happen, my guess, is that something will happen on the internet, or something will happen in the world in general that will be blamed back, will be pinned on somebody that had an anonymous internet connection that was able to do something horrible. It might be, I don't know. Let's say the banking system got shut down, and they would say, well, it was Russian hackers that shut down the banking system. And, if we'd had internet ID, then, this wouldn't have happened. Your bank accounts would have been safe. And, now so then at that point, all the people will start demanding it. They'll be begging for it. Give us this internet ID. We can never have this happen again. Of course, it'll be based on a complete lie, but that's how things get passed. And I don't think it'll be any different moving forward, that this internet ID card idea will take hold, because something will happen that will make us beg and scream for it. I
absolutely agree with you, Charlie. And right now, the way things are, I think it's going to be something. If there is going to be an event, the timing of it right now would seem, that we're in a window for it. So I look around at what's going on right now, and of course, there's an attempt to demonize Trump ahead of, there's always an attempt to demonize Trump, but we've seen the tying of the Q group, and no bad word, but I'm just laying something out here, audience. The tying of the Q group to Trump, the tying of the Q group to various gates that have been on the internet, that have been well spoken about. And even Alex Jones has been mentioned in the same breath as Q and everything else. So they're going to wrap all of this up together. And it wouldn't surprise me if something happens. I'm saying something. And then whoever has done it what will happen in the media and from law enforcement is that they'll demonize a specific group. It's either going to be somebody who's a paid-up member of InfoWars. It might be somebody who's into QAnon. But they'll use that as a propaganda tool to absolutely come after us. And it's not going to be a one-case deal because, they've known for a while, ever since, the early days on the internet, they could see how it was taking off. They always know what's coming in the future. They can project. They must have predicted things would get like this. And they must have been thinking long term, how do we set this up? How do we do it? How do we get from A to Z and in the end actually have people begging for an ID? And I don't know. There's part of me, Charlie, I'll get your thoughts on this, but I almost feel now, looking back with hindsight, that they baited us into this position, right? Because you look at some of the false flags that have been covered, and I'm not even denying they're false flags, but how obvious were some of the clues that were left for us? These aren't stupid people that we're up against, right? So how come, there was these obvious clues all the time, like, we found the passport, or you've got crisis actors appearing at multiple events in different countries, and it's almost as if they left these kind of clues out there so that we would post all of the various conspiracies on the internet. Sandy Hook, that's one that's really controversial. And I go along with the fact it's very questionable what happened there. But all of the clues there, people walking in and out the buildings, going round and round, kind of obvious, right? The porta potty's been on order. Could it be that they were leaving things like that out there knowing that we would run with it and it would all come to this day, and now they'll look back and go, look how dangerous these people are. And to the audience, they're not trying to convince us. They just need to convince everybody else. And they will say, look at this. We're going to hear about people losing money to the whole QAnon thing as well. There's going to be a financial thing, fraud aspects. I think this is it, man. I think this is what they're going to do.
You made a comment a couple of weeks ago that I thought was great. You said, people say when you start taking flak, you're right over the target, but you could also be walking into an ambush. And I think there's a little bit of that goes on. I think that in some cases they set up some really obvious, there's some nonsense going on with these drills and false flags that are so preposterous that you have to call it out. But at the same time, they're also probing to see exactly how dumbed down the public is. Like, it's at some point, people have to sort of stand up and say, this is ridiculous. Like, nobody will believe the nonsense. I always bring back the San Bernardino shooting. It is like every single protocol for an investigation was broken on that. And the media did nothing. They didn't even notice it. For instance, like when they were allowed to contaminate the crime scene by showing up in the people's the alleged shooter's apartment.
And there's the kind of thing I'm talking about. That's ridiculous when you think about it, right?
Oh, it's ridiculous. And then as an observer, I'm watching this going, okay, this is clearly, there's something not right with this. But then what I want to see is someone that's a media member that's walking through that house stop themselves and go, hang on a second. How are we even allowed in here? This is a problem. Like, I feel like we're all being set up. They don't ever have that thought. So I'm watching them and I'm sort of rolling my eyes like they don't even get it themselves. Like, they don't see that they're a participant in this madness. They are,
Anderson does. He knows. He knows.
Oh, Anderson Cooper.
The man knows. He knows.
the knows. Yes.
I'm laughing. We're laughing because he's literally, the epitome of the mockingbird media. He is CIA all the way. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but and we'll be getting into your book after the break, obviously, The Octopus of Global Control, but I love just kind of hanging with you, picking your mind, because we're usually on the same page. But didn't the American government, like recently in the past few years, legalize the use of propaganda?
They most certainly did. They passed it. It's called the Smith Modernization Act of 2012. They crammed it in that pile of garbage they called the NDAA and passed that thing through. And what it does is it repealed the Smith-Mundt Act, which prohibited propaganda from being used on the American people through television, radio, newspapers, magazines, all that stuff. So what they said is that prohibition about propaganda, we need to get rid of that because we need to lie to the people. We want to lie to the people legally. I mean, we've been lying to them for years illegally, but it'd be nice if we had ourselves covered. So they changed it. So there's an allowance for the number. I think it's like 1,000 hours a month or 1,000 hours a week or something of propaganda that they're allowed to. I mean, it's just preposterous. The whole thing is crazy.
Think about it, Charlie, right? We're the first type of people that say, the media, mainstream media, fake news, they lie to us all the time. Yet then we drop that standard off at the door the minute a big event happens and we analyse footage from the people that we know are known liars for clues that we then think are genuine clues. But they're coming from known liars.
But we're crazy for bringing this up.
It's a strange old world. It really, really is, man. But something else that's been happening over in your neck of the woods is these fires now. Not even to get into the source of them or anything like that, but it ties in with a bit in your book as well, Charlie, which is about Agenda 2030, because that's something I've been hearing about recently as well. And, even what we're talking about here, the whole censorship, the clamping down on the internet, I mean, this is another kind of aspect, another facet of the new world order that we're moving towards, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's a real thing, too. I know that some people will sort of roll their eyes and go, Agenda 21, Agenda 2030, that's nonsense. It's really not. The Club of Rome was an organization that was put together by Rockefeller and Alexander King. He was a guy that had a big role in Tavistock. And they're very forthright in their books about what the plan is. And the plan is about creating the concept of global warming, to be used as basically the carrot that puts humanity into demanding for a carbon tax. And part of this was, they're going to say that they're going to use the threat of global warming, whether it's actual or not, to force people to change their habits and pay. And you read the whole thing and you go, this is a carbon tax, and then you look at something that's happened like maybe 15 years ago in the United States. You have what's called cap and trade and the Enron scandal. Those were carbon tax trading scams as well. It's sort of falling into that. And Agenda 21 is Agenda 2030 now is the new sort of version of it, is very much part of their plans. And it has them envisioning us into, being sort of forced into larger cities where we can be more easily controlled. And I know a lot of people kind of hear that and they go, that sounds preposterous. That'll never happen. Well, what's happening in China? They've been doing that for the last 30 years. They've been moving people from the country into the large cities, and they're doing it for a reason, so they can have authoritarian type control over that. So you look at China, and if you still think that it can't happen here, it can. They're just a generation or so ahead of us in terms of their Orwellian social media systems and their desire to lock everybody down inside the city. I mean, look at China. That's where we're going.
And you see Google, they're moving over there, all the big tech companies. And I honestly do look at China as being at the very central kind of hub of the whole infrastructure when all is said and done. And that's not to be defeatist, folks, but we can see things moving there already, and it doesn't need to be doom and gloom, but that's the way things are going. It truly is. And you've got that creepy Astana, just not too far from China.
Yeah.
Well,
oh, yeah.
And like you say there, I just want to reiterate what you said. I've covered this with Max Egan, with Anthony Patch. Anthony Patch in the chat room. I've seen you two guys hanging out on YouTube today.
Yeah.
We were quite surreal, two of my favourite guests in the chat.
I love his stuff, man. His stuff is really fascinating.
Oh, how can you not love CERN?
I mean, it's evil, but it's interesting. I should say.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the science alone, before you even get into the spiritual woo behind it. I mean, there's enough to talk on that for about 10 shows. But we're coming up on the break, and of course, you're listening to Charlie Robinson. He's the author of The Octopus of Global Control. Not sure if he's got his own website yet. I really, really hope so. But he has got a Facebook group. Funnily enough, it goes by the name of, you guessed it, The Octopus of Global Control. And the reason I really like hooking up with you, Charlie, is because I think, you must have a lot of Scottish in you. I mean, your name alone makes you sound like you should be dressed in a kilt with a claymore, running about a glen somewhere, right? But you have the same attitude as me, man. It's not that we find things funny. It's just that we like to put them in a funnier kind of frame to take the edge off things. And
if I took this stuff seriously, I would be throwing myself off a bridge like I was a witness to the Clinton Foundation.
Absolutely. Well said, my friend. We'll be back on the other side. We'll be learning more about this great book, and any conspiracy theorist, as much as I hate that term, this is something you really need. It's like full metal jackets of truth that you can fire over the dinner table.
This is the Kev Baker Show.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I want to welcome you all back. And if you're just tuning into the show, we're joined by Charlie Robinson, the author of The Octopus of Global Control, which contains quotes from over 500 people in there. And I tell you, this is blatantly damning them and catching them out in their own words. And the way he's put it together, there's humour in there as well. He's a big kind of fan of Bill Hicks and George Carlin, two people who really were, somehow describing the times that we live in today, way ahead of the time. And if you haven't checked out Charlie's work before, I urge you, head on over to the Facebook page. And Charlie, where is it they can actually get the book? Don't tell me it's over on Bozo's page, is it? An Amazon one?
Yes, but I will say this. I made it available. It's now available on BarnesandNoble.com as a ebook and as a paperback now. So if you don't like what's his name over at that big online store, you can go to the other place.
I know a lot of people don't like him.
I can understand.
Yeah, I can see a good side to him. And probably when he's getting into the space stuff, but all of his other things, I mean, look what he's done to the kind of smaller stores and things. It's totally changed the whole kind of consumer market, hasn't it? It just totally changed that environment. We've seen a lot of businesses falling by the wayside. And, I suppose people say it's more convenient now, stuff like that. But just look at the high streets. I don't know what it's like over there. The high streets over here, used to have little stores, still quite successful, but changed throughout the UK, and they're just gone, absolutely gone. And, Amazon started off just selling books and things, and, here they are now doing DNA research, delivering things by drone. Who honestly knows what they're getting into? Yeah,
but what's the irony, though, is that they're actually starting to put out physical bookstores. Amazon bookstores now, which I find really kind of ironic. And hopefully some kid is just about to graduate from high school right now who's going to go on to develop a new marketplace that will put the new Amazon physical bookstores out of business in some sort of poetic justice.
And I think it's in Seattle. I may be wrong, but I think they've got a store up there, right? Absolutely no human works in it. And you get this, man. I think it's like one of these, like you have to have the app on your phone or you scan your card on the way in. And because you're lifting items up, all tracked by RFID, it's all tallied up for you. You get to the door. You just walk out, dude. It's already come off your account.
They could hire Mitt Romney and Hillary Clinton since they're not human either.
No, Hillary Clinton, she's already got a gig. I see they've kind of done her up looking like a statue in Arkansas.
Oh, yes. I saw that as well. Nothing to see here, people. Move along. Nothing to see here.
I will be the next man after Alex Jones to be kicked off the internet. But no, before we get sidetracked, man, let me get you to briefly describe this book of yours, right? Because I like the PDF form. I can kind of search for names, all the characters in the cabal, past and present. And it takes you to these absolute dynamite quotes. And it's their words, folks. And that's what's so good about it. And like Anthony Patch, he taught me when we're looking at the science, if we can get it from right back at the white paper stage, when the kind of stuff that nobody looks at, this is where they were putting it together. And I think it's brilliant how you've done this book. It's almost along the same lines. And I think that's why I personally resonate with it. And you've got a really genius style of writing, man. I was trying to tell you that before we started the show, because there's one part of the book called Censored, Surveilled, Watchlisted, and Jailed. And you know, that's pretty clever. And I was saying to you, you need to get that in a T-shirt. But no, it's just a compliment to your writing, dude.
Well, thank you. Yeah, in the first quote I put in there. So what I did was I tried to have the voices of all of these people that were instrumental in some of the most important aspects of our history. Some of them being, George Bush and Hillary Clinton and the Rockefellers and Rothschilds and people like that, but also George Carlin and Bill Hicks, because they have a different way of looking at things that brings in a sort of a sense of humor and sort of exposes the insanity of this all. But so you take the first quote that I used in that chapter is from Zbigniew Brzezinski, and this is from his book called Between Two Ages: America's Role in the Technotronic Era. And he says this: the Technotronic era involves the gradual appearance of a more controlled society. Such a society would be dominated by an elite, unrestrained by traditional values. Soon, it will be possible to assert almost continuous surveillance over every citizen and maintain up-to-date, complete files containing even the most personal information about the citizen. These files will be subject to instantaneous retrieval by the authorities. Sound like anything we've been experiencing lately?
Just a little bit.
And that's from the 70s. Okay, so this is the for people that sort of think that the way the world develops is haphazard and sort of random and by chance, I would say that there is a component of that. But there are a lot of people in high positions of power that maybe you don't recognize their names, but they have been at work controlling this and sculpting the future to be the way they want it to be. So when you read Zbigniew Brzezinski's book from 40 years ago, and it talks about the Technotronic era will be like this, and now we're living it, it's probably important to pay attention to this guy because he knows what the plan is, or at the very least, he's involved in some aspect of the plan. And, so we're living this. We're living his dream. I think Philip K. Dick, as a sort of science fiction writer, was more along the lines of kind of coming up with these things as well, but slapping science fiction on it. And Zbigniew Brzezinski's probably grabbing his book going, oh, no, we can do that for real. Like, that's a great idea. Let's do that. And I'm sure Philip K. Dick would be horrified if he saw sort of the mess we're in now, but I don't think he'd be surprised either.
Do you think Philip K. Dick and George Orwell, do you think they were maybe fed some of their ideas? Or do you think they were almost tapping into future? I'm with you on the first one. Or maybe they were tapping in just to what was to come.
I think Orwell definitely was involved in it. I think that he was maybe even a part of it. I know he George Orwell was his pen name, but Philip K. Dick.
Love his stuff, man.
Love his stuff too. I think he might have been, listen, there's something to be said for psychedelics. There is another world out there that we cannot see on a day-to-day basis, but it is as real as anything we're living in right now. And I think people discredit it and dismiss it as being sort of like, oh, hey, you're just twirling in circles in the parking lot of a Grateful Dead concert. But there's more to it than that. And there are a lot of really important aspects of it that play into our current society. So I think maybe Philip K. Dick had less of, I don't think he was going to the Bilderberg meetings or anything like that, but I might be wrong.
No, I'm with you. Orwell, definitely in the know. Philip K. Dick, I think just kind of almost genius level with his ideas. And I wouldn't call it like prophetic, but he was able to look at the curve we were on. And I suppose, with hindsight, it's easy looking back that we were headed here, but maybe even in the writings of their time they were giving it away. You've got all these quotes. Maybe he was just kind of going to the libraries, digging up the documents, and like you say, it's all been laid out for us, man.
He had a twin sister that died either at birth or very close to her birth, and he lived his life feeling very kind of on the edge, almost as if he was half complete and possibly tapping into his sister. I don't know that for a fact, but speculated, and that would certainly be an interesting component of how he might be able to see the futures if he had some sort of 1 foot in, 1 foot out of this other world. And so I think that was something that I in one of the documentaries I saw about him that I found to be rather interesting. But yeah, for him to be able to for people that aren't familiar, his books, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, was turned into Blade Runner. The Minority Report is a book he wrote that was turned into Minority Report. And he was also involved in a book that was turned into Total Recall. And so, you start to, when we watch those movies in the theater, they were science fiction movies. But as we get older and older and we watch these movies on DVD, again, it's less science fiction and it's kind of more creeping into the day-to-day news that we're hearing about, things like implanted memories and pre-crime and all this madness we're seeing in the news lately about pre-crime. It's crazy. It's
like a documentary with a storyline woven in about it, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. And then you realize it's coming from Hollywood, and then you apply the fact that Hollywood is totally involved in the planning of the future, and in conjunction with the information gathering agencies, the spy agencies and things like that in the government. And you start to realize that, hey, maybe they're trying to give you sort of ease you into this future that they want you to be living in, and they do that through predictive programming in the movies.
It's quite interesting you bring that tie up there, because that's something that you don't really hear emphasized enough. We were having a laugh about, synthetic boy Anderson Cooper earlier on with synthetic looking style skin that he's got. And we all talk about the connections between like the alphabet agencies and the media. But Hollywood is no different. And, they've got total, their tentacles, is apt for the show tonight, all over Hollywood. All of the programming that comes from there as well. And absolutely, but we just don't hear enough about, we hear about all the shadier things going on in Hollywood. But that whole aspect, where the Pentagon, they have kind of an input on military scripts, stuff like this. That's really important as well to point out.
Oh, they have a huge, the Department of Defense is involved with a lot of the movies that you've seen. There was a list that came out recently. I mean, it's obvious for things like Air Force One, American Sniper, Black Hawk Down, Battleship, all these things. They go through the DoD. But when you find out that like Ernest Saves Christmas also had Department of Defense approval, you're in King Kong, and you're kind of rolling your eyes like, all right, why does the Department of Defense have to get involved in Godzilla and Goldfinger and
people laugh at me for talking about the Sasquatch. Can you believe it?
Well, the Department of Defense had to sign off on the Transformer movie. So, what are they? They've got Godzilla, they've got Jurassic Park, King Kong, and all the Transformer movies. Do they know something about really, really large animals destroying cities that we should be informed about or not?
And you think about it, we talk about CRISPR, Cas9, the gene editing technology on here, talk with Anthony Patch about the fact that they can use the particle accelerators and now the quantum computers to really map things right down to the way the proteins are all folded in our DNA, Charlie. Point being, we see dinosaur bones being recovered here, there, and everywhere over time. I mean, are we literally talking about somewhere that could be out there, like a Jurassic Park? Because they've got the technology for it, man. And I'm not seriously saying have they got one, but theoretically, they could.
Yeah, of course. It's crazy. The CRISPR thing has me really concerned because that has almost unlimited bad ideas attached to it, and there is no end to the sort of things that could happen. And of course, if you and I were playing around with CRISPR, we would be careful because we would say the last thing we want to do is create some hybrid that's out there.
We just want to fly and fire fireballs from our behinds.
Right. But when the military-industrial complex gets a hold of it, I mean, they have nothing but bad intentions for that sort of technology. So I am fearful of what the future is going to look like. But maybe it's good. Maybe it's good that people are waking up to the fact that these sort of things exist and that people in positions of power have access to them and control of them. And maybe they will when it is posed to us in the future as a good thing, hey, we've got this gene editing software, you guys should embrace that. Maybe they'll say, you know what, that seems like a bad idea. I don't think I'm going to do it. Although, we currently have the 23andMe and all of those sort of genealogy sites that want you to spit in a tube and send it back to them. And I don't know, maybe I'm paranoid, but that just sounds like a really bad idea to me.
Well, we've seen one of the pharmaceutical companies actually getting in bed, literally, with one of, I think it was 23andMe, just over the past couple of weeks, and it kind of escapes me which one it was, but you can Google it, folks. I think it was a $20 million, $30 million tie-up, and that's so that they can get access to the DNA that you send them. They only do like a snapshot of the full genome, just so they can tell you like where you're from, all the interesting kind of stuff. But your full genome, they keep that. It's more expensive to test the full one, but not when you're getting a $30 million kind of dollar tie-up, or it might even be $30 billion company.
Well, the founder of 23andMe is the Wojciechowski. It's one of the Wojciechowski. Is that it? I think it's the sister of the Google sister-in-law, the one that was married to Sergey Brin. So there's connections between Google and 23andMe. Of course, they had seed funding from them as well, which should come as a surprise to nobody. And
of course, they've got a D-Wave computer, which can look at our DNA right down to that protein level. Just saying.
Yeah. Sleep tight, everybody.
Told you it was going to be a fun show tonight, man. But no, back to your book, because, we're looking at the kind of future and New World Order. If it comes around, for me, it's going to be very scientific. We can see that. And we're talking here about almost like humanity 2.0, enhancement, stuff like that with CRISPR. But at the same time, Charlie, you talk about somebody that you dub the most important man in the world in your book. And that, of course, is somebody called John Holdren. Now, he's got some pretty creepy science ahead, and he's got some pretty wild ideas about how to really herd, and I use that term knowingly, herd the human population.
I classified him as the most interesting man in the world, as a play on the beer commercial.
But you're not impressed, though. I kind of went with that off the top of my head. I'm just trying to perform me now, get it wrong, but
this guy is out of his mind. He wrote a book in 1977 called Ecoscience, and he says in this book, the development of a long-term sterilization capsule that could be implanted under the skin and removed when pregnancy is desired opens additional possibilities for coercive fertility control. The capsule could be implanted at puberty and might be removable with official permission for a limited number of births. Now, this guy, I jokingly say that Joseph Mengelev gave the book 5 stars, but this guy is not just some lunatic who's living out in the woods. Now, this was Obama's science czar. This was the guy that Obama said, what we need for science is we need to bring in the guy who wrote the book that said women should be forced to abort pregnancies whether or not they want to. The population at large could be sterilized by infertility drugs intentionally put into the nation's drinking water or in food. Single mothers and teen mothers should have their babies seized from them against their will and given away to other couples to raise. And people who, quote, contribute to social deterioration, as he called undesirables, can be required by law to exercise reproductive responsibility. In other words, can be compelled to have abortions or be sterilized. So he wrote this in his book in 1977, totally stands behind it to this day. And Obama said, that's the guy that we need in charge of the science for the United States. So, I mean, this is an example of how the media doesn't really focus on that because, that guy's a maniac. And it would be really bad for Obama if the world knew that the guy they put in charge of science wants women to have forced abortions, or have your
let's speculate for a minute, right? Let's speculate. Let's say somehow the most wicked witch from the West, Hillary Clinton, and I understand she's got a new job in that, like I was saying earlier on, but imagine she had won the election, folks. We would have quite logically, we could expect them to carry on the same kind of stuff that Charlie laid out there. And let's speculate then that amidst everything going on right now, like we were talking about earlier, this push to come after the internet, to demonize all of us for daring to have open minds and think for ourselves, and then even more brave of us to be out there talking about it, and all of you as well, sharing stories. Do you think, and we're speculating, Charlie, I'll give you that kind of creative freedom, do you think we would have seen conspiracy theorists labeled as mentally ill?
Yeah. And you would have to go to your doctor and see what sort of prescription they have to combat your conspiracy theory-itis that you've contracted from listening to Alex Jones. You would definitely there would be some sort of prescription.
I think we need to emphasize that we're not saying that, and in case people try and twist this, that this isn't what we're saying. We're not saying it's a form of mental illness, but we're saying that they may have classified it. They may still, for all we know, we hear about the deep state and the swamp and whatever other names that you want to attach to it. So, we're just kind of speculating what they might try and do. And that's really scary, man.
We're kind of joking about it, but it's a possibility at some point where they will just, classify. It doesn't take much for the FDA to classify or the CDC and the FDA. They work hand in hand, so they could concoct a new disease. They do it all the time, and then this new psychotic illness that you have, they could say, you're a conspiracy theorist is the term they gave for it. It's somebody that is delusional and believes in fake news and thinks that the government's out to get them and all these things that, of course, are happening. and they would say, if you believe that.
Just to add to that, though, Charlie, Miss Robbie, like I was telling you in the chat room during the break, I think this is the perfect time to kind of bring that up, because she was mentioning how, conspiracy theorists, it's not a delusional thing. And we know that. But when the mainstream media use it, they're not trying to convince us. And they have convinced and programmed people into thinking that is exactly what these people believe. And people like us, I'm talking about.
Yeah, they bend the truth and they paint people. Listen, there are crazy people out there. There's no doubt about that. We understand that. But to think that Hillary Clinton was involved in, some nefarious things, that doesn't make you a conspiracy theorist. That just makes you somebody that's objective. The information for that is everywhere. And same with Donald Trump. There's problems with him as well. But to point these things out, the definition of a conspiracy is two or more people working in secret to commit a crime. That happens all over the place every single day, right before our eyes. So conspiracies happen. Theories on it is, hey, I think that maybe these people are conspiring to work against my best interest. Of course, that's an obvious thing, and there's nothing inherently negative about that term at all. Of course, the media will make it negative, and they've done that, and they've done a pretty good job, and that comes from the CIA in the 60s deciding that they were going to take that term conspiracy theorists and they were going to use it to marginalize anyone that had issues with the Kennedy assassination and things like the moon landing and all this stuff. And it's very effective because they use the media, which they control, to hammer down on that. So whenever you hear conspiracy theory, it's reflexive. You just automatically think that person's crazy. Well, because that's what the media has done. Now,
you're bang on, man. Bang on. And another one I'm worried about, Charlie, and I'll get your take on this. I've not asked you this one, but there's another thing floating about out there called false memory syndrome. Now, you hear it being attached to Mandela effects by psychologists and things like that, and that's fine. They can call it that if they want. And in all honesty, that's quite harmless. But, it becomes dangerous if this is a weapon that they're going to use against people making claims about bad things that might have happened to them in their childhood and in their past. Because if they start classifying that sort of thing as a false memory syndrome, these evil people at the top who are into this sick stuff, they're going to be rubbing their hands together. And bear in mind, they're the same people that control the courts and the governments that will make the rules.
That is a slippery slope and a really dark future if that is to happen, because like you said, if they control the rules, they control the classification of something like that, they can just make it look as if whatever horrible thing happened to you, like you said, in your childhood as an example, and I think I know where you're going with that, they can just slap that label and say that you've got a false memory about it, and therefore it's not real, and therefore you are not real, and your claim is not real, and how dare you waste the time of the court by bringing this to against case dismissed. And you want to talk about feeling helpless in a situation like that. These people that have been victims of some of these horrible abuses already feel practically helpless. They're finally starting to get some sort of light at the end of the tunnel with what's been going on in the topic that I will not name, but you can initial. You're starting exactly. You're starting to feel like maybe there's we're turning a corner on this, and some people are waking up, not just Americans but worldwide, are waking up to the reality that some people in high places have some pretty horrible habits, things that they're into, and that they have been controlling and harming people for a long time. Now, if you take that false memory syndrome and put that in place, I mean, that's exactly what you would come up with if you were one of these people in power. You'd say, well, we need to come up with something to discredit these people, and how could we do it? That would be a great way to do it, to discredit them. So I'm fearful of that.
And then they go to their controlled media, they make a couple of high-profile cases, and before you know it, nobody will even go to make the claims anymore. Because
nobody wants to be marginalized and ridiculed.
No. And this has happened in the UK. I don't know if the claims were false or not, but the high profile kind of coverage it was given in the media at a time when people were coming forward, when it was almost looking like we were going to get some kind of justice. Well, you can imagine what all of that coverage for the poor lady involved actually resulted in. Not many more people came forward. What a way to kill a story, eh? We'll be back on the other side, Mr. Charlie Robinson with us here, and I'm sorry to cut you off, man, but I would rather cut you off than our music. So I want to tell the listeners, 1 hour down, 1 hour to go. Possibility, we might even be having Jimmy Jeans join us, because he's like Charlie's #1 fan. We'll see. We'll be back after the break anyway. And then coming up right after tonight's show, big shout out to Lucky and Dr. Brooks Agnew for your pleasure, bringing the information right after KBS on TFRlive.com.
This is the Kev Baker Show.
Hour number 2 coming to you live from Glasgow in Bonnie, Scotland. I'm Kev Baker. This is the Kev Baker Show. I have got the author of The Octopus of Global Control. You can find more about that and his interests, the stories that catch his eye. He was recently at Area 51. No, I mean Las Vegas. I've seen the pictures. We've got Charlie Robinson with us. You can find that Facebook group at The Octopus of Global Control. And joining us during the break to, give us some extra kind of thoughts and opinions for the final hour, we've got Jimmy Jeans. And Jimmy, welcome back to KBS. I know you love hanging out on here, but even more so tonight, right? Because Charlie here, when you first heard him on the show, you absolutely fell in love with the guy, didn't you, dude?
I did, because he's so quick-witted, man, and he does have a hold on what's going on in this crazy world we have, and I enjoy him very much, and I enjoy being on with him. Hey, Mr. Robinson.
Thank you, guys. That's nice of you to say. And Jimmy and I have been chatting over the last couple of weeks. We got all kinds of crazy stuff. I every time my phone rings and it's him, I'm laughing. I'm like, this is going to be great. I'm going to have to watch some new video he recommends. I'm going to watch this. I'm going to get. So anyway, yeah, I'm digging it.
I've been trying to angle to get both you and Charlie on my show at the same time, because it's late night and I know we could talk about stuff in a way that we just can't right here. So hopefully we'll make that happen soon.
You're like that digital uncle that comes to a wedding and everyone's like, oh, I wonder what he's going to do tonight. No, Jimmy, and for the audience out there, Jimmy is, he's like family. We're always in touch, away from the show as well. And, from time to time, I like to wind Jimmy up. And I can only do that because I've got a lot of time and respect for the guy. But let's get back into this, right? And you can hear Jimmy's show coming up every weekend, and that's Friday and Saturday. I'll get details of that later on. But coming back to you, Charlie, you brought up a really hot topic during the break, and it's something that really we should be screaming from the rooftops. We should be getting the kind of bunting put up in the streets, having a parade, man, because Monsanto, they lost in court. What's that all about?
They must not have had Judge Clarence Thomas voting for them, voting in favor of them, because as he has every single time that the Monsanto has gone before the Supreme Court. If you didn't realize, he used to be a corporate attorney for Monsanto, so that's why things tend to go their way when it gets to the Supreme Court. But yeah, it was pretty surprising to me that they lost. I'm sure they'll tie it up and in all sorts of countersuits and things like that. But to award $289 million over the glyphosate lawsuit, I thought was fantastic. And you're able to watch it. There's a video of the judge reading it out. It takes about 20 minutes, and it's worth watching because the look on the guy's face when they say, when they give the punitive damages is like, holy crap, I can't, his attorney, of course, is probably just salivating, just like, oh my God, is there anything better than buying a Ferrari with Monsanto's money? I mean, could you imagine that? So it's great. So that's where we
And like we were saying during the break, though, this is where kind of symptomatic of the times we live, I suppose. Even a victory like this, I cast a wary eye over it because I think to myself, hang on a minute, here's Monsanto. They've literally been bulletproof. And like you say, they've done that with that whole revolving door kind of thing that goes on in the corporate and government world. That you know how it goes with fascism, the merger of government and corporations, right? And they usually get away with everything. So my suspicious mind, and we kind of got into this over the break, what else could be going on here? Because, I don't know, it's almost as if something's wrong with this man. And we should be able to celebrate, but we have to question everything.
My first thought, and this is my little conspiratorial mind, went to the fact that because it was in the news, and it's not a good thing to be in the news for if you're Monsanto, of course, my thought was that it had to do with the Bayer-Monsanto merger, and that if you're Bayer and you're looking to buy Monsanto and you want to pay a lower price, hey, this would be a good thing for you. It would tank the value of Monsanto to a point where Bayer can come in and pick it up for cheaper. I have no proof of that. It's just an assumption that I'm making. But when you see dirty things like this happening, when you see a company like Monsanto, like you said, that's been bulletproof and has been able to for the most part, stay out of the media in terms of, as evil as they've been over the decades, they really have done a pretty good job of staying out of the media. We know about them, but the vast majority of people have no idea who Monsanto is, never even heard of them, still to this day. So when I saw this, I thought, wow, okay, so that's like the lead story. Why is that allowed to happen? And my first thought was that it was allowed to happen because there's some benefit for somebody. And if you're a shareholder in Bayer and you're about to close that deal to buy Monsanto, you buy it at a share price that starts dropping. That was my thought. I don't know. I might be wrong, but stranger things have happened with that company.
I like that thinking. And like you say, we can't prove it. But I tell you what, all this show is for a reason. And Jimmy, I'll come to you because I used to bore the guys at work. We would be out patrolling, doing security. And one of the shops there, it was like a garden store, DIY. And every time we passed like the fertilizer and that pesky Roundup, if it was a new guy there, even guys I'd told before, that would get me started. And that would be me on my high horse for 10 or 15 minutes, But they're a very, very influential company. They've got that Roundup that they've been spraying everything with. You could talk about the bees dying off, possibly we could attribute that to them. Even down to the fact that they have got an aluminium, or aluminum, as you guys say over there, resistant seed ready to go. And bearing in mind, what do they spray from the skies? Oh, plenty aluminium. They're a creepy company, Jimmy, ain't they? But what do you make of this whole kind of the fact they've been done?
Well, it's interesting. When I was a boy, my family and I went to Disneyland, and there was a whole Monsanto thing. It was like Future World, and you could walk through there, and they were telling you about all the great chemicals and different materials that they were making, so the future would be, bright. So bright, I have to wear my shades, which I'm doing, because this chemical that's in Roundup is basically in everything that we eat and consume, and some things even more than others. For example, just a meal at a local fast food chain. You've got genetically modified organisms in the wheat, in the cheese, in the beef. Everything is saturated with this glyphosate. So, I mean, the thing about them getting found guilty in this particular instance is this cascades through so many different areas that I can't imagine them being around much longer if this verdict holds true and this actually gets paid out. I mean, I think they're probably going to fight this for a while.
I'm going to read off a list of some of the products that have been determined to be infected with glyphosate. This is just from the breakfast cereals. And I apologize in advance if this is America-centric. I'm not sure what they're called in Europe, but...
actually, just before you...
They don't allow it.
Yeah, we've been pretty good. I can't complain that way. I always kind of point the finger at the Nazi EU. But that's something they've been pretty kind of staunch on. Get that out of here.
Good for them, then. That's good. Well, we get it in Cheerios, Wheaties, Trix, Kellogg's, Corn Flakes, Raisin Bran, Special K, Oreos, those bastards put it in Oreos, Ritz crackers, Triscuits, Goldfish, even the organic stuff like the 365 organic golden round crackers, which is 365 is the Whole Foods generic version. So
think about that, Charlie. That means it's literally become part of the environment.
It's everywhere. It's in all the oatmeals. It's in all the granolas. It's in all the snack bars. It's in all the orange juice, Tropicana, Minute Maid. It's everywhere. It's
everywhere.
The genie is out of the bottle and it cannot be put back in. And what's another thing about Monsanto that I gotta bring up? This is evil and also genius at the same time. If you're a supervillain, watch what Monsanto does because they're brilliant with things. So they're killing all the bees with their pesticides. So there are bee research firms that have been digging into this, making a lot of noise about this because it's obviously a problem. All the bees are dying. So Monsanto goes out and buys the bee research companies and then just shutters them. So the voice of opposition, they just have so much money that they say, what's it going to take to buy your little company? Well, my company is not for sale. Well, what about $10 million? My company's for sale for $10 million. Great, we just bought it. And then they shut it down.
For sale for $10 million. I'll cut in a soundbite now. Just you wait and see. But no, it's they talk about cornering the market. They've made the market. Jimmy, he does this.
Yeah, I wanted to
stop, man. I thought you'd done it.
No, but I did want to say that one of the most powerful natural things that you can use to heal yourself is dandelions and dandelion root. And what I find so interesting is that no matter what, I mean, because if you plant dandelions, say in a contaminated field, that will draw up all the poisons and whatnot that are in the soil, just like hemp will. But the thing is I find it so interesting that they built their company basically on destroying the dandelion, but they haven't destroyed the dandelion because I can walk down any city street and see one, growing up through the cracks on the sidewalk. So all they seem to have done is destroyed the environment and given us cancer. But the dandelion lives on. And ladies and gentlemen, research the dandelion and the dandelion root because you can make some nice stuff for yourself at home to help heal yourself.
Good advice, man. There's always, something we can use these natural kind of plants around us for. And it's funny you bring up the dandelion. Seen a story at the weekend there about somebody who'd been tasered for picking dandelions or damaging them or something, and I thought that was a bit OTT. So I put hashtag dandelion lives matter, and it didn't really. There's the future effect in the past again. It didn't really make sense at the time, but now that Jimmy's telling us how important they are, see, it makes sense now, right? Quantum Kev. Like my quantum.
I know. Wow.
Like quantum stuff, Charlie. See, there's that future effect in the past again. So when I say something random to you, just listens to next week's shows, and it might make sense.
Are you in your time machine? Is that how you're doing all this?
I don't know how I do it, dude. I told Jimmy one night I think I'm channeling it from somewhere, but then again, that'll be cut up into a soundbite. So I don't know what goes on, man, but it's weird how the show works these days. We talk about one thing and then you get the confirmation later. That makes me think that we talked about it in the first place because we knew it was going to happen. Deep, man.
That is very deep. I'm going to have to take a break and just ponder that thought for a second.
You see, that's what all this CERN research and things does to you. And, we're talking about Monsanto, a big company there. Let's go big science. CERN, you were saying you've got a good interest in that. I mean, that there, the science alone, before you get into all the kind of stuff that Anthony Patch covers on the back of that. I mean, trying to burst holes in the fabric of space and time to puncture into other dimensions. What on earth are they doing, man?
Yeah, what could possibly go wrong with bursting holes into space and time?
Never heard any good book, any good story, anything positive coming from the opening lines. I was once bursting holes in space and time.
No.
I used to burst holes. I used to burst holes in space and time with my old motorcycle. I know that. I used to sit on it and think, man, I'm propelling myself through time and space. It used to put a smile on my face every time.
Talking about space, just before we go back to CERN, I seen you had posted Buzz Aldrin, this kind of now infamous clip of him talking there about they hadn't been to the moon. What do you make of that one, man?
I think Buzz Aldrin is just really old and doesn't give a blank anymore. And I think he is on the verge of just letting it all out there. I mean, I have been fascinated with him for years and years. I valet parked his car. I think I told you this. I valet parked his car like 20 years ago, and it was just hilarious to me. I was just so enthralled with what he was doing. I've watched the video of him punching out what's-his-face.
That is so epic.
Which was hilarious. And I've been, I think that if in fact he has been carrying a gigantic lie for all these years, I would imagine it would be liberating to just kind of let go of it at the end. I mean, he would be, of course, signing his own death certificate or his death warrant, but it would probably feel, like a great relief to him.
I wouldn't mess with Buzz, man. Not even.
Oh no,
dude. He was down the hole. He's still got the adventurer in him, and I don't know. I agree. Maybe he's thought, you know what, to heck with it. Or maybe it's just, his old faculties are starting to go a bit and, he doesn't know. He's not saying that he doesn't know what he's saying. He's just forgot that he's not meant to say it.
Right, exactly. But I think Buzz Aldrin has probably gotten to the point where he is tired of holding on to the secret. Yeah, I loved his interview where he went off on Phobos talking about the monolith there. I was like, what did you say? Like, I feel like, hey, like someone was going to just pull him off that, I think he was on C-SPAN or something like that, someplace talking about it. You felt like he was just going to get like the CIA was going to run and drag him off the set.
And that was the thing. He wasn't even talking about it. It was just so random. I would like to hear us talking more about it. And you're thinking, hey, I don't care anymore if you landed on the moon or not. Tell us more about this monolith. And
no
of course,
kidding, yeah.
Yeah, he's right. And I mean, that's a bit of a game changer. When you've got maybe a man-made structure on a moon around Mars. Just saying.
Yeah, that might be something we would find interesting. Maybe put those in our science books. I don't know. Maybe Buzz can elaborate. We
could never trust it. It's from NASA. But let's go back to Geneva and this CERN thing. Good or bad? I mean, you see some people are absolutely convinced this could bring an end to the world, or there's other people, myself and Anthony cover the benefits that come from these particle accelerators and medicine as well. So do you think it's as crazy as it sometimes sounds, Charlie? I
don't have the scientific background to be able to say if it's good or bad, but what I can say is that ceremony that they had was straight up Orwellian. It was like a satanic. I'm not religious, so I don't naturally go towards the Satan thing as like an insult, but it had a really sort of satanic feel to it, very New World Order-ish, and I think it cost $11 million. Now, I know they've got a lot of money to spend on CERN, but still, $11 million to have an opening ceremony that was as bizarre as that one seemed really intriguing to me. Like, that really got my attention. That made me think that there was something there.
That creeped me out, and you had the whole kind of Stargate, the whole portal thing at the start of it. And then when they got into that thing in the tunnel, when there was these big, giant, creepy babies should never look creepy. And they managed to creep out babies, and they were like, I don't know, maybe 12 to 15 foot big. They were being carried about. I tell you, if Stanley Kubrick had been doing, Eyes Wide Shut too, that's probably the scene he would have had for the party.
Yeah, Stanley Kubrick choreographed that from the grave, from beyond, for sure. I mean, if I spend $11 million on a ceremony like that, I want the babies to be cute. I don't want them to be creepy. I don't want them to give everybody nightmares. The look of the people that were like in the audience, they looked like they were horrified. Like they didn't know, like they were like, what is going on here? Whose idea was this? And it kind of reminds me of like those, like the Olympic ceremonies or like the halftime events for the Super Bowl. There's all this weird stuff going on. I think it just has to do with, it's that deeper ceremonial ritual sort of aspect to it all.
Every good magic has to have ritual with it, doesn't it? And allegedly, I had a kind of whistleblower from the palace telling me that throughout that opening ceremony, which of course was streamed live, Prince Philip and the Queen happily eating popcorn, catching flies. They were absolutely engrossed in it. So that's the kind of people, the kind of audience that were really into that kind of thing. But again, all joking aside, here's my boil down on CERN. So much cool science going there. Real science, absolutely. And for a geek, a science guy, a quantum guy, it's fascinating. It just sets the imagination on fire. Learned so much with our man Anthony Patch. I'm blessed to be able to have learned as much as I have. But at the same time, when the lights go out, and all the genuine scientists that are there, because they're not all into the black arts. I'm sure some of them are there with the purest of intentions. But you know what I'm talking about. When the programs on public display are all rolled away, and we know what they're able to do by cracking open these holes and dimensions and things like that. We've seen Shiva sitting in the garden. No reason for Shiva to be there. That brings this whole spiritual aspect to it. We've seen the kind of parchments with all the ancient texts on it. What's that all about? Point being, really, really cool science. Like it for that. I don't think it's going to bring about an end to the planets. Not even, I don't think, up there with the Manhattan Project. But at the same time, and I'll bring you in, Jimmy, there has to be, and people have to address the fact that there's a very, very dark, sinister potential that lies within as well, right?
Yeah, and the thing about the CERN facility is that it's not just, it's an international project. Okay, so there's a lot of countries are involved. A lot of countries have invested money. And so you can see that there's a statue out in front, it's the Shiva or whatever. And a lot of people have made, bones about that also. Made bones about that. How do you make your bones? Well, your whole facility, big, giant, ritualistic dance numbers that cost $11 million. These rituals have been performed throughout time. A lot of, in my personal opinion, a lot of what goes on at CERN, that science has been passed down from lip to ear inside of these secret societies for thousands of years. And so maybe there's a physical representation of the technology with the CERN. I don't think CERN's going to destroy the world. But I think the attitudes about technology such as CERN has more potential to ruin the world because, when they first invented the automobile, all the people who were alive at that time thought the world was going to end too. Everything was going to go downhill. And, in my opinion, it did. But, we can't go back. The horse is out of the barn. Technology is available to us. And we should, in my opinion, I think we should go wholeheartedly forward with the technology. The big issue for us, I think, as a people across the planet is that there is nobody really in charge and looking out for our best interests. And when corporations are people, such as they are here in the United States, they're allowed to go and lobby for their point and get their stuff passed. Because when that guy is in the office, he represents an actual person. And so it's fully legal. I mean, to start off with, getting rid of the corporate identity as a person worldwide would probably do us all a real service. But secondly, I think there has to be some sort of a mediating force someplace that's trying to look out for human beings before technology is just thrown out there. Because, the bottom line, they care about making money and they care about profit. And if your body is in the way of their, 5G signal and you happen to get sick, that's going to be your problem. Because nobody, once the airways were given away, here in America, Bill Clinton with the Telecommunications Act in 1996 signed away the people's airwaves, and that basically, put us in the situation that we're in now. So, I don't think CERN's going to end the world. I don't think it's of the devil or whatever.
Good. You don't think it's of the devil on top of the abyss?
I don't. Maybe there's an abyss. I just don't think, I think, our metaphorical examples throughout time about what may or may not exist in this place called hell. It all depends on who is writing the book. Just like earlier, you guys were talking about how, these certain things could be deemed a medical or a psychological disorder. And the thing is, yeah, you're right. Because guess what? All somebody has to do is write that up, put it in as a symptom, and that goes out into all the books. And then all the, people that get into psychiatry and psychology later on learn that that's a symptom of a disease. One of the symptoms of depression is no symptoms. Who wrote that book? You think that got, from one of the companies that makes antidepressants? Who's writing the symptoms of these diseases?
I write the books. I write the books here. Tonight, Charlie's writing the books. And, one of the creepier kind of things I've seen coming out of CERN anyway, when they're talking about opening, the key to the bottomless pit thing, and they're standing there, all the scientists with the key. And again, they could be baiting us into thinking these things. But I don't know, man. There's a nefarious faction within that CERN, I'm telling you.
I'm not worried, though, because apparently Asgardia is here, and so we can all go there and become citizens, and then we're fine.
Let's do it, man. Let's become the first cats on radio to become citizens of the first space nation, Asgardia. And people might think, oh, come on, you're making that stuff up. Well, if I'm making it up, stay tuned, because after the break, I will play us in with the national anthem of Asgardia. I'm not making this stuff up, folks. We've got a satellite up there that people are uploading all of their data to. They are data citizens of the newest nation, not on this planet, but in the universe. You couldn't make this up. We'll be back on the other side with the author of The Octopus of Global Control. We'll be touching on more of the topics contained within that book. Love Charlie to bits. He's definitely a good fit here at KBS and on www.tfrlive.com. So tell everyone you know to head on over here, and we'll be back in 3 short minutes.
This is the Kev Baker Show.
Welcome back, ladies, gentlemen, and citizens of the first space nation. I'm Kev Baker. This is the final part of tonight's Kev Baker Show. Don't forget, coming up after the break, we've got Lucky and Dr. Brooks Agnew, Quantum Connections. Absolutely brilliant. Hope you all stay tuned for that. But Charlie Robinson, author of The Octopus of Global Control, I urge you to check that book out. It's loaded with about 500 odd people, all of the main players and shakers over the years, telling us exactly what lay ahead. And he's got a Facebook page as well. You check out the same name as the book, The Octopus of Global Control. Bring it up and you'll find all the kind of stories he's into as well. Really, really good page. And of course, Jimmy, he's with us. Jimmy Jeans from the Microcosm. He is here live, and Before the break, I said I would play you in with the national anthem of Asgardia, the space nation. Now, I know if you're just a first-time listener to the show, you might be thinking, what is this cat on about? I'm being genuine, folks. This comes from the Asgardia inauguration in June of this year. All stand for the Space Nation's national anthem. To infinity and beyond. What the heck, folks? And no, that's not. It's not satire. We're literally talking about the world's first space nation. I remember us bringing this topic up months and months ago, when it was just a logo on a Wired magazine article, and we talked about this future, this dream that this billionaire had of creating the world's first space nation, where we could have space citizens that would not only populate our own solar system, but go out further and conquer the universe. Bearing in mind it's in close kind of geo orbit right now. It's not quite out there into the cosmos yet. But here we have it, guys. And Charlie, I'll come to you first. We spoke about NASA on the show before. We're both quite open about the fact we love space. I think that came through when we spoke about Phobos. There's a passion there, you know. But here we have Asgardia, a satellite flying around the planet with people's information on it. It's got its own constitution, and it basically sounds like something out of the New World Order, only in space. What do you make of this, man?
Well, their constitution looks like I printed it up on my home printer. It's an embarrassment. And their national anthem would make Philip Dick throw up on himself.
It looks like a manifesto from some kind of failed shooter or bomber or something, doesn't it?
It looks like something the media would find inside some staged event living room right next to the manifesto that says that it was all done because of Allah.
It would be in like the footprint of the bomb, everything absolutely decimated, right beside the passport.
Made out of the same material that you make a passport out of, yes. So it would be indestructible too.
I mean, it's a whole set of rules, you know, and people, I believe between 200 and 3,000 people around the world have already applied, and they're now citizens of Asgardia. And this, like I say, I have to keep re-emphasizing it. It's not the plot from one of my new Netflix programs that I'm into. This is Gen Up, and I think it's some kind of Russian billionaire or something behind it, Charlie, isn't it?
Yeah, he's Azerbaijani, and his name is Igor Azerbaili, I think. And
right, man, good on you.
He has major ties to the United Nations. What a surprise! And you know, frankly, I never trust anyone wearing a bow tie. So he's got the theme is one humanity, one unity, which leads me to think one world, possibly. I don't know. But you do, one thing that I did learn from watching the video that Aaron Dykes made, Truthstream Media, right? Great stuff, unbelievable. That there is the possibility for space martial law, which sounds awesome, and you're required to pay taxes no matter what, and you essentially have no free speech. It's determined by the I got to go look through my constitution of Asgardia, but it's
something. You look that up, I'll tell the audience, you know,
please.
People behind that, Aaron and Melissa, they will be coming on the show early September. I've given them a list of dates. I was talking with Mel last night. So hopefully Aaron will confirm a date real soon, because these two, for me, TrueStream Media, Aaron and Melissa Dykes, they really are leading the way. You know, the level of production that they put into the documentaries, and even the YouTube presentations. I mean, this is something different class for alternative media. And that's
First class.
Yeah, it's not to criticize anyone else. It's just, they have really raised the benchmark. And I can't speak highly enough of both of them. So they will be on KBS next month. Mark my words. It's not as if I'm just approached them. I know them. Mel's very keen to come on. She was even retweeting some of my Twitter that I was getting involved in yesterday. Yes, I was in the trenches again. Point being, we're going to get the very best for you right here, just like we have tonight with Charlie Robinson. So, my man, I take it you're armed with your constitution by now. Educate us on the ways of the space citizen.
Well, it's a space kingdom. And as we know, kingdoms are awesome because nothing bad ever happens in a kingdom, like Saudi Arabia, for instance. This is going to be, I think we should do a write-in campaign to make Aaron the king of the kingdom, since he's done such a great job with the video exposing it. I think it would be brilliant if they draped the golden necklace. You gotta watch the video. It's so preposterous, but it's just great. It's like maybe 30 minutes long. It's so funny. They're trying to put the necklace over some guy.
You expect it to cut away to the bridge and Jean-Luc Picard saying "energize" or something. It's like something at Star Trek, dude.
I'm waiting for. They all did it with a straight face though, which is great for them because this guy spent a lot of money on it too.
Seen the video when the guy's getting the chain on? There's an interesting character to his left-hand side, and his name, I believe, is a really strange name. I apologise to the guy because I'll butcher it. I think it's something like Opus Limbic. Now, he was a politician in this country, and a bit of a character as well, by all accounts, because, well, you can see he left government, and now he's working for the Asgardian government, digital government. But he was also, married to one half of a almost like a comedy pop act over here called the Cheeky Girls. Point being, the guy's pretty much a laughing stock in the UK, and they're rolling him out as one of their main government officials. Doesn't exactly add much credence to this whole space nation they're building.
No, but it seems like it should be anchored in the Askara, where the Kazakhstan place that has all the New World Order symbology there. And
all the spaceports. All the spaceports as well, which is quite interesting. Now, Jimmy, I know you're wanting in here, my man. On you go.
Oh, I just thought it was funny that you just brought up Astana because that's what I was thinking earlier when you guys were talking about this, when you first bringing it up. I think there's a significant thing going on with this story, although it seemed ridiculous at first.
It's a precedent setter, isn't it, Jimmy? They're setting the precedent for something here, man. Plus,
that's exactly right. Yeah, you're exactly right.
They bring up on the video as well, and I'll come back to you, Jimmy. I'll let you go, but Aaron points out, and we've covered it on the show here as well, Estonia, the e-nation. I mean, this digital nation, it's literally all of your data tied into the blockchain. It's like Estonia on steroids. And I do think it's an important story, Jimmy. Absolutely.
Yeah, and it ties in. I think it ties into Astana and Estonia. I think all of these things are all tied together because I think ultimately whatever constitution there is for this thing is the kind of constitution that they want in the future for humanity. And I think that by putting this out sort of as a joke, but it got supported because they want this type of thinking to be out there as far as uploading, the technocracy, like you were talking about earlier with Brzezinski. The technocratic age, they want you to upload your consciousness. They want all this to be out there. And honestly, when you look at it, there's so many potential offshoots from this because now once you're saying a bunch of people have already signed up. So that just shows you that now, people are willing to sign on for something like this. And these are the kind of things where, our rights are systematically being taken away now in the inner space of the internet. And, there is no governing factor except for.
Yeah, think about this then. Think of the current political scene. We see everyone kind of balking at Trump and especially, the program, the ones from universities, stuff like that. mean, imagine they gave them the option to go and, basically tear up their American citizenship and go fully digital on a satellite.
You know what came to my mind when you guys threw down with that national anthem? Immediately, I got a vision of the Denver airport mural. And I swear I had a vision of the children all carrying their arms down in front of the Chinese man to back their swords into plowshares.
Oh, dude, Charlie, man, he's giving me the goosebumps here, because I'm not saying it's very like that, but the choir girls and things. I'm going to have to go and look at that picture again, because I'm quite creeped out now. It might not mean anything, but Astana, Denver Airport, the Space Nation, you know what? They're all connected, dude.
Well, they took that painting down from the Denver airport, the one with the guy that's dressed up.
Oh, no!
Yeah, they did. There's some of them are still there, but they took two of them down. The one with the Nazi, like with the gas mask and the big like machine gun and the huge sword.
They didn't leave it up.
Yeah, and the chemtrails in the background.
Yeah,
one of them put Trump's face on there, dude.
I would watch people. I live in Denver, or right outside of Denver, and so I go through the airport all the time. And to watch people's expression on their face when they walk by that and look, and they're like, "What in the hell is going on?" Like, why of all the things you would put in, in an airport, why that? And that just is a totally different story altogether. There's some crazy stuff going on in that airport, but that's a story for another show, I think. But
absolutely, man. And you posted a picture on it is related, because you posted a picture on your Facebook. Can you guess where I am? And it was one of these, is it Janice flights or Janet flights? Yeah. And that's the ones that go from Vegas into Area 51. Now, of course, Area 51 is synonymous with space, UFOs, all that kind of thing. And, just recently we have had the announcement. It's been in the offing. But we've got the Space Force now as well, man. We've got the sixth arm, the US military. Come on, times are getting cool, right? What's going on with this, Charlie?
I feel so much safer now that we have the Space Force. I was worried that Flash Gordon was coming. I was worried that Darth Vader and the Stormtroopers were coming. But now that I know that Mike Pence is in charge of it, I feel a whole lot better, because he wouldn't get involved in anything that was shady or flushing trillions of dollars down the proverbial toilet.
I would hate something to happen to Trump, because see that Pence character, I know nothing about him, being not into politics anyway, but he looks like the kind of guy that would go full military. And by full military, I think he would go all Gaddafi on everyone and start wearing the uniform and everything, dude.
Well, that was funny that back when Jesse Ventura was joking about, I don't know if he was joking, but he was sort of proposing that he would run for president. This is like more than 10 years ago. He would go on.
It's big enough. Let's face it. The man's ego, forget the body, it's the ego.
He would go on Howard Stern, and Howard Stern would say, "I'll be your vice president. That way you're assured to stay alive, because they would never kill you, because then they'd get me as the president." And he was like, "That's a great idea, Howard. Let's do it." So, I think that Mike Pence is probably there's probably some skeletons in his closet, maybe even actual ones. I'm not sure. Not trying to start any rumors.
When you get to that level of politics, it goes beyond hearsay. I think these people all have stuff that they certainly would rather not coming to light, and that's the most polite way I can think of putting it. But Space Force, it intrigues me. Obviously, the military-industrial complex, they must see the war on terror coming to, kind of an end. People ain't really buying that anymore. How many more countries can you create ISIS and chase them through it and bomb it to heck? Do you know what I mean? I think that they're done with that. They need money. And you can bet your dollars over there in the US that a lot of this stuff that's going to be in the Space Force, a lot of it probably we've already got, and they'll just roll out some of the secret tech. It doesn't necessarily mean, I'm not talking about green men. I'm just thinking, militarily, they're going to be ahead of what we know about. And that's going to cost money as well, Charlie. So
the first time you see...
the coffers are going to be swelling. All business for the military-industrial complex.
Yeah, and then you fly a TR-3B over the Super Bowl at halftime, and everyone goes, "Oh, well, that's where the money's been going. Okay, fine. They're actually doing something with the Space Force." Meanwhile, they've been doing this for decades. They've got this, they've got this other funding mechanism that, has been financing what they call the secret space force, which I completely believe in. I don't know why that wouldn't be happening. I think NASA is a front organization and a bad one at that.
I think it's up front for some of like the money that goes to the world of black ops and things. I think the whole space thing is just a charade, in all honesty. They're just like a front of shop. They've got space on their mind, but then behind that, it's almost like they're one of the funneling kind of system towards the shadier stuff. And I'm talking about all the shadier things.
Well, they claim to have rewritten over the tapes from the moon landing, because they were interested in reusing those tapes again. So, a company that or an organization that siphoned off literally trillions of dollars from the United States taxpayers, now all of a sudden concerned about spending money that they're going to rewrite over tapes of the moon landing to save a couple dollars. I mean, give me a break. That is their official statement, by the way, that those tapes were rewritten over because they wanted to reuse them. I mean, it's such an embarrassing lie that, like, I'm insulted as an American that they would actually spit that out as some sort of excuse for it. They have no problem taking trillions of dollars and flushing it down a rat hole. But now all of a sudden they're shopping at Marshall's and pinching pennies and going to Costco to get stuff because they want to save some dollars. Give me a break. It's a joke. And
of course it took a very kind of infamous Scotsman to open a lot of people's eyes to the potential. Just say the potential. I'm not telling you that there definitely is, but the potential for some off-world military kind of action movements, craft. Gary McKinnon, famously, I don't call it hacked. You don't hack into something when the password's kind of open and you just log in and you're moving a mouse about on the screen next to somebody who's sitting there, just taking control of a terminal. No, I think the password might have been password, in all honesty. Didn't take any hacking, and he was the guy who gave us the whole thing about off-world, or was it terrestrial and non-terrestrial?
Non-terrestrial officers, yeah.
Yeah, and we're not talking, green men or anything. I think we're talking about people in a unit that is literally non-terrestrial. And, of course, there was the names of crafts that don't appear on any water kind of manifesto of the US Navy. I think also to add to the credibility, Jimmy, of what Gary was actually claiming. And bear in mind, we're going back to the 56K modems where it was painting a line of kind of the picture at the time. It famously says it got cut off. So you have to take his word for it. But the American government came after him and wanted to give the guy, bearing in mind he's on the autistic spectrum, wanted to give him something like 76 years hard time, dude. Now, they were obviously wanting to make an example of him for a reason. And I wonder what they were worried about, what he's seen.
Well, I think this all kind of, the whole conversation sort of ties together with the Asgardia thing.
Of course it does. We're good at that on here. You know that, Jimmy.
Yeah, and I think something we should maybe even put out on the table tonight is the fact that, once let's establish this Asgardia with Constitution, people sign on to it and become citizens of it. And now that thing becomes real on the actual planet, where they put an embassy somewhere with an ambassador. Once they have an embassy and an ambassador, that property then becomes sovereign property of the people of Asgardia. Just like Masonic lodges, wherever they are located across.
You're right, because even Aaron was saying, they're talking about going out and claiming, planets, and it almost sounds like they're a way out to explore and beyond.
Right, and so because they're out there first, they're going to establish what all the rules are around this. And I was about to say,
let me ask you then: is it enough then for us to send a probe to Mars? You've got the Asgardian satellite in orbit. We know that they can transfer DNA now. We were covering this on the Anthony Patch show. They can transfer it across the internet. Could they beam copies of the DNA of the Asgardian citizens who, give over all their details, their data belongs to Asgardia, transmit that to Mars? You've got it stored there on the probe. We can go into the bioprinters if you want, but if it's enough to be a space nation with a satellite, is it enough to claim a planet with a probe full of data?
Why wouldn't you be able to? This totally makes sense. And listen, the Space Force, those are going to be weapons flying around up there to keep satellites in check. Because once these guys, now anybody can do this, right? So any small country could do the same exact thing and go out there and claim planets for themselves.
Absolutely. Charlie, I mean, this sounds like we're almost doing a science fiction podcast tonight, but we're not. And your book, it covers this topic, and what I love about it as well, much like the kind of ethos that I have to the show here, behind the show, it covers every topic, man. Every single topic. And earlier in the show, I was talking about bugging my friends at work about Monsanto, things like that. And I know everyone out there, you've either been at that stage, or there'll be people listening tonight who are still, feeling really frustrated trying to wake people up. And I'm not just saying this for effect, but this book, you don't have to read it in a oneer. You don't even have to read it all subsequent chapters. You can pick it up here, there. I search it for key characters. What the point I'm making is it arms you with the kind of stuff that you really need that'll make people, even the most asleep people out there, their jaw will drop to the point where, prove it. And you'll be able to prove it to them. It'll be all there in one book. And Charlie, that's why I thank you. And I think that's why, we have such fun when you come on here. That, and we've got a sick sense of humour, the three of us. We do. We laugh at the most inappropriate stuff at times. But hey, that's how we roll, right?
Well, thank you for saying that. I really do appreciate that. Somebody called it the conspiracy dictionary, or because it's sort of got all of them listed in there. But to me, I always felt like it's hard to tell which event is going to crack your brain open. Like for me, it was 9/11 and World Trade Center 7 coming down and seeing that. But for other people, it might be another topic. Yeah, Monsanto. Might be Monsanto. It might be that the Vietnam War was started on a lie or something like that. And so the book gives enough different topics that you'll find something of interest. And it's also a good book to send to somebody that you've worked on for a while and you just can't get through to them, or they're tired of hearing from you. It's a book that someone can send to a friend and say, hey, just read this. Just read chapter 14 about this and see what you think. And it might. You know how that works. It's one thing. It gets you thinking, and then you go, well, if this is a lie, then what else is there? And then it sort of starts that snowball process. So thank you for saying that about the book. It's available. It's available on Barnes & Noble and also on that other platform that sells everything else.
But it's true, though. We have all been there, and I think it's almost like one of the kind of growing up, if you want to put it into that kind of frame, the growing up within this alternative kind of information, learning that you have been lied to. And you go through a phase. I've seen it with everyone. You try and tell everyone the stuff you're learning, and it can be even overwhelming to that person. You might not recognize it at the time, but I know I've done that to people. When I left the room, they must have been wiping the sweat off their brow and thinking, dear Lord, what has happened to him? But,
I've done it too. We've all done it. We get excited.
Exactly,
their level of enthusiasm is not the same as your level of enthusiasm about the particular topic. And so if it doesn't match, then they're sort of just like, you need to calm down and like check yourself into a nut house, because I'm not prepared to take on this information right now. Everyone's at different stages in their life too. Some are ready for it, some aren't. That's cool.
That's what I've learned, dude. It's not our job really to force somebody into this. We've got free will in every other aspect of our lives, and we're champions of that. And we should practice that as well when it comes to the information. People will get it in their own time. And if they don't, well, they don't. But we're on our journey, and we are getting it. And it's thanks to people like Charlie Robinson, who I opened the show saying he's one of us, folks. He was there. He felt that frustration, and that's what led to the book that we've spoke about now often. And I'll keep bringing Charlie back for as long as he wants, because I genuinely like hanging out with him. Jimmy in the second hour, just the perfect kind of fit here tonight. Nice start to the weekend. Jimmy, you're going to be having Charlie on your show sometime soon. And I know you've been pestering me. And perhaps, maybe I'll just have to bite the bullet, man, and do it.
Well, I'm going to be
in shock. Look, he's in shock. He's like, wow, it took Charlie to maybe get him on my show.
Well, you know what? I'm going to become a digital citizen. And you know what? What if, am I subject to the laws of the regular people then?
I was wondering. You're not?
I'm going to be a digital citizen with organic intelligence. And I'll tell you what, you guys are both coming on my show, Kev. I'm not going to let you pull the curtains. Right. He doesn't want to come on my show because it's not dark.
Jimmy, we're almost out of time. Ladies and gents, you've been listening to Charlie Robinson, the octopus of global control. Coming up after the break, we've got Lucky One and Dr. Brooks Agnew, Quantum Connection. Stay here for that. I'll be back tomorrow night, same time, same place.